Hey everybody, it's me, Rumi, the comic book poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. It's Tuesday, you know what that means. New comic book day is tomorrow, baby. So to find out exactly which books make the list, you'll have to find out after this. So this is my, I think, second time looking at my pull list this week, and a lot of it was seeing if there was anything coming out that I didn't want to pick up anymore, and I can't remember if I took anything off. Last week was also incredibly Marvel heavy, so we'll see if that's the case again this week as well. First book up from Vault Comics is the Autumnal number 4. I love this book. I have said that I am intrigued by what is going on in this universe, but I want some more backstory of what's going on in Comfort Notch. You know, the creepy town where everybody's constantly raking, and apparently if you let kids play in leaves, then you and, another lady get in a fist fight. So apparently we get to find out something tragic, some background information or of a terrible tragedy that happened in Comfort Notch, that we see that in the description here. So I'm excited to slowly start getting some depth or some context, and Autumnal was on my picks of the year from 2020 from Vault. Next from Image is Big Girls number 6. I also loved this book. I think Jason Howard is doing amazing things, and we are getting to the end of the first arc. So there was a conflict of brewing throughout the end of book number 5, and we get to see whether or not Ember survives. If something happens to the big girls, what does a potential new world order look like? I'm gonna guess we get a little taste and a hell of a cliffhanger in this book. Next up is Bleed Them Dry number 6. This is also from Vault Comics. This has been a wild chess match in terms of looking at the conflict between the vampires and the citizens of this new Japan. This conflict was escalating as well. We got to see a couple of character turns. We got to see some heel turns, face turns, all kinds of good things happening in this. I want to see what kind of resolution we may get in terms of some of the people who may be targeted as a threat versus some of the people who are actual threats, and I'm excited to check this one out. Next up from Image is Commanders in Crisis number 4. This is the crazy world that Steve Orlando has thrown us into. I like the idea of playing with the death of empathy as an emotion as embodied through the death of a physical, actual human being. So I want to see what is kind of going on in this book, that empathy, as they were brought into that command center, eventually kind of comes to. We discover that empathy maybe was saved, but their absence from the world may be something that leads to its demise, and I want to see how all of this shakes out, especially if book 4 is the end of the first story arc. This is something that I think was a wild concept, and I think, they even said the only person in the world who may be able to pull it off was Steve Orlando, and so far I think Steve Orlando and the team are doing a hell of a job delivering a pretty cool story. Next from Vault is The Devil's Red Bride number 4. This is also a series that I'm quite high on in terms of looking at, we've got vampires, we've got samurai, we have vampire samurai, we have cult action, we have a rising hero, we have some love story playing out, but apparently we get to find out who the new enemy is, who the new threat is, and apparently the Red Bride is also unmasked. So it looks like this is going to be a real barn burner. Alright, next up from AWA we have Erratic number 2. This is you're a teenager and you've got powers, but you can only use them 10 minutes at a time. I picked up issue number 1. It came in a week late for me, and I think it's an interesting take in terms of looking at a teenage superhero. This might not be a book that fully resonates with me, only because it's geared as more of a YA style book, and I've never been 1,000,000% into those kinds of stories. And it's no slight at the author or the story behind it. It's just I'm not a coming of age superhero teen. I'm a 36-year-old dude, and I ain't got powers yet. I don't know why I'm picking up this next one. Haha number 1 from Image comes out this week. It's W. Maxwell Prince doing his, creepy shit that he does in Ice Cream Man, but apparently with clowns. I think it's going to be a hot book. A lot of y'all know that I'm terrified of clowns, so I think I'm going to have to read this book in the daylight while I'm surrounded by 1,000 people to make sure I don't have a panic attack. Next up, it's time for that Bemis drop.
Anything for you. Whoa. Anything for you. Whoa. Anything for you. Anything for you.
Because we're talking about heavy number 4. I really enjoyed the last book of this where we were watching Bill's partner kill multiple versions of himself to clean up the timeline, which I still think is kind of wild. I like the idea that essentially both of these men are fighting for the same thing because they both love Bill's wife. And apparently there's a big throwdown that's about to happen in the front lawn of the White House, and this might be kind of weird to read given the events of last week, but who knows. I'm excited for it. I've enjoyed this book a lot. Issues 1 through 3 have all been really cool, so I want to see what Bemis has for us. Next up from Image is Homesick Pilots number 2. I really liked the kind of creepy, ethereal nature of book number 1. The idea of, gaining some kind of power from the creepy old home. The MC Escher-esque kind of art that played out throughout this book was also kind of cool, and I'm excited to see where this series goes. That it's strange in a good way. I can't put my thumb on what kind of direction I think it could take, but I'm definitely along. Alright, now it's time for a big old storm of King in Black tie-ins. Gwenin vs. Carnage. Dope. Love both of those characters. Planet of the Symbiotes. I'm excited to see what happens in this title, to get some background information, especially if I think it's going to tie into the events of Venom from last week. Thunderbolts. Never really been fully into them, but if you're going to get all of the, the Marvel Suicide Squad together, led by good old Fisk, then I'm ready to check that out. So there are 3 tie-ins, maybe there are more down here, I don't know. Next up for Madcave is Knights of the Golden Sun number 9. I still think this is one of the most interesting tales to put out in comics right now. That it is the Providence is Lost period in biblical history, that you see some of the archangels kind of attempting to regain their powers, regain their faith in the absence of God. And we see new threats arising in issue number 8 last month. So I want to see what happens next. But this is a really, really, really interesting series. Even if you're not a big religious person or you're not a big Bible person, I think it's an interesting type of epic fantasy playing with, a dark period in the telling of the Bible. And it's weird to talk about how much I like a book about the Bible, because right below that on the list is Lonely Receiver number 5 from Aftershock. This was also one of my picks of the year from Aftershock. But I really like this. The first sentence makes me sad. It says a horrific breakup story in 5 parts. So if this means this is the last Lonely Receiver I get, I'm going to be sad. Y'all know that I'm real bad about reading solicitations and seeing how long books are actually running for. But I want to see if everything comes full circle. Do we get to see Rhiannon come back? Is it all done? Is our main character ever able to find love or sexual pleasure again? I'm down for this book. I love it. I think the story is really intriguing. I have spoken, so many nice things about how great Jen Hickman's art is in this book. And if you're not on it, then this is a trade that you should definitely pick up. Next, from Image is A Man Among Ye number 4. Y'all know how much I love Stephanie Phillips. We've got the 4th part in our tale of an ass-kicking female pirate who discovers a stowaway on the ship that she is the second in command on, and they are like a British naval officer, but it is also a young woman who is masquerading as a male soldier. she is doing what she can to bring her into the pirate's life instead of, drinking the dogma of the crown. Next up from AWA is Man's World #1. I don't know 100% what it's about, but it's from AWA, and I'm going to read it, and I'll probably will. Next, our first X-Men title of the week, Marauders #17. We get a throwdown between Storm and Callisto, and I'm ready for this. I think Marauders has been one of the strongest X-Men books consistently. There is constantly new ways to find drama and clash, both within and outside of the Hellfire Company, so very, very dope book that I'm stoked for. Next, we've got Mighty Morphin #3 from Boom. I like this book. They're still dealing with the betrayal of the Omega Rangers because they, freed Lord Bracken to fight the new existential threat, and I do kind of like how these two books are intermingling, so I'm excited to keep getting my Morphin Time journey on. Next up from Boom is Origins #3. I finally read the first 2 issues of this book, and I think it's going to be a quite interesting series. You have a civilization that is essentially fallen. We are led to believe that humans are done for the most part, but we find that there's, someone who is either reborn, someone who is constantly, reprogrammed. I don't know the best way to explain it, but it's good. It's a 6-issue series, and I only know that because it says Part X of 6 on each of the covers. So #3 is coming out. I know #1 kind of flew off the shelves. It went to a second printing, but I think this is a cool series. Next up from Madcave is Pantomime. I have loved this series. I think I might have read this one already on their online portal, but we get to see what the kids are up to. Are they going to successfully strike back against the manager instead of being exploited by him? This is a really good book. I still love the way that they're playing with children who are deaf and seeing how they can kind of shake up things and be included too. Next from Aftershock is Red Atlantis #3. This damn near made my 2020 list, but I saved it because I really think this is my favorite Aftershock book, 2 issues in, and I think it's gonna blow up in 2021. But we got to see what the real threat is from the Russians, how they were able to create so much violence on Election Day. We've started to find out more about who Miriam is or who she's connected to and what role she plays. So I can't wait to see what Stephanie Phillips and crew have in line for this week. Next is Sword #2. I read so many X-Men books the week that came out. I don't remember what Sword #1 was about, but we might get to see if there's some ties to the King in Black in here. I'll probably reread #1 before it comes out, but yeah. That might be the lamest explanation of a book ever. Next up from Boom is Seven Secrets #6. I've had a on-again, off-again relationship with this book. I thought #5 was really, really, really interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens in #6. That I think I finally get some of the relationships that people have gotten into. I finally have bought into some of the plot points, so I'm warming up on it. Next up from DC is Sweet Tooth: The Return #3. I'm still just pulling these because I haven't read Sweet Tooth yet, but I think it's on Hoopla, and once I finish the last 10 issues of Saga that I have, I still have a couple of credits left for the month of January. It's game on for me plus Sweet Tooth. And the last book of the week is The Union #2. We'll see what I think about this. I thought book #1 was okay. It was also the first King in Black tie-in after Symbiote Spider-Man. So we'll see if I buy into this team, but I do like seeing what is happening with the Britannia Project. I do like these UK superheroes coming together, and I want to see, what they deal with when they're not dealing with the threat of symbiotes. Anything on my list that I missed, let me know down in the comments below. In terms of what I've got going on this week, you will see me a couple of times on the internets throughout the week. That on Wednesday night, I will be on Mr. Comics 89's channel for the Throwdown, and I am taking on D-Runk Comics, making some arguments as to why Captain Britain is better than, Ben Reilly? Sensational Spider-Man, Scarlet Spider? One of the spiders that ain't as good as Captain Britain. And I got some tricks up my sleeve for Papa Runk, so come support me. I'll start tweeting out the link. You should watch the arguments that Mr. Comics 89 has got going on those episodes of the Knockout, that it's quite the entertaining watch in terms of just watching comic book fans play with the who do you like and who do you think that would win in a fight. That I watched a lot of the last season. I'm really excited to participate not only in this season, but it is my first official appearance in a comic book game show, excluding Comic Burritos trivia contest that I won. So we'll see if I am successful on Wednesday night and you get me for an episode 2 down the road. But that's all I got. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.